Hey everybody, wanted to welcome you to another episode. I am detailing a couple of my best relics, most interesting relics I'll say from 2024. I've got about 20 relics to show you, so I'm not going to dilly-dally, but this is one of them in no particular order. Super pleased with that. That is actually a banjo bracket, and these were sold around the turn of the century, very late 1800s, very early 1900s. People like to say that they are drum tensioners, but they were not marketed as such, and so I think somebody just basically put one on a drum and it became a drum tensioner, but they were actually manufactured and advertised in mail order catalogs between 1880 or 90 and 1920 as banjo tensioners. So great find. They also had them in shield shape, so if you see one that's shield shaped with that nut on the back and a place for the bar to go through, that's what that is. On to the next. Hey everybody, this is my wife's relic. That is one half of a Missouri lock. It's a figural lock, and this was actually made for the 1904 Missouri World's Fair, which was the St. Louis Expo, and it was offered in Simmons Hardware Company manufacturing catalogs from about 1904 to 1910 or 12. And it's an interesting piece. It's only half of it there. I'm sure we'll find the other half, which had the fair buildings as a sort of a skyline photo of the fair buildings on the lock. So pretty cool design. It was manufactured by Slaymaker. Again there, St. Louis Expo 1904. Very cool. Hey folks, this is another one of my wife's finds. This was a figural pipe that she found. Unfortunately, it was broken, but it says President on one side, as you can see, and Fillmore on the other. So Millard Fillmore presidential clay smoking pipe. Really cool. I'm going to show a non-dug example down here. Obviously this circulated during Millard Fillmore's presidency, so really cool old item there. Awesome. Well folks, this is another one of my wife's finds. This is an Oxan pill bottle with a giant ox with that's anthropomorphized on the front of it. Pretty cool. It says Oxan Pills on the back. This was a quack medical bottle from around 1900, 1910. Pretty cool. There's an example in the Smithsonian. I think it's amazing that that escaped the plow. It's made by the Giant Oxy Company. Pretty cool. Well folks, one of the things I wanted to highlight here was matching buttons from the same site. It's not unusual to just find buttons on a spot, but what's really interesting is when you find matching buttons, because that means something entirely different. That means that those buttons were not just lost randomly, most likely. It means actually that the whole garment was tossed out with the buttons attached, which was common in many cases. So there's two sets of buttons, a one-piece button at the top and a two-piece button down below, and both dug in 2024. And there's multiple examples coming up from the same site, which means that the garment was there in a trash pit. Pretty awesome. And I was very pleased with this find. That is a very thinly stamped, you can barely see the Christ figure on it, cross, probably, I would guess 1820s or 30s on the date on that. Maybe slightly later, but not much. Pretty great early find there on that crucifix. Really cool. It's very thin stamped brass. It was bent when I found it. I had to carefully bend it back. Really cool find. This is another one of my favorite finds from 2024. This is a repoussé or pop-out style watch fob. And these were blanks, which were then impressed with the design. You would feed the blank in for a fee at usually like a, I don't know, World's Fair or something like that, right around 1890, 1900, 1910 is when all these seem to date from. Or you could feed a coin in, and for an extra fee besides the coin, it would actually impress the design. There's a lot of examples of these in various items, but I was just happy to get one finally, and it's a beautiful watch fob, so I'm super pleased with that. And this is, may not look like much, but it's a Mosler Spitfire 775 spark plug. This is a very, very early spark plug. You can see the patent dates, 1917, 1918, 1919. And, you know, back in the early days, you would actually just have this core, and you would buy the part that's screwed in based on the size and dimensions of the screw threads and everything, because nothing was standardized. So pretty amazing. And these were very expensive spark plugs. And of course, in the early days, engines fouled a lot. So pretty cool early item there. It's the first one for me, so I'm pleased to have it. Also from 2024 is this Celotex company badge, employee number 500. It's kind of a cool employee number. It had some sort of a pin back that was brazed on, as you can see from the brazing marks there. Celotex company was right on the Mississippi River, just above New Orleans, and it made things like stuff from the sugarcane byproducts, like particle board and various types of insulation. And I want to say that this company went out of business or was sued for manufacturing things that had asbestos, and it was shut down. But I don't remember the full story on it, but I love to have that, love having that badge. It's pretty cool. So neat item there, a unique item you would never ever find one of again. All right, folks, and this I was very thrilled to have. You can tell by that small size, goodness, and I don't have huge hands. That is a child-sized thimble. And let me say that I maybe have 2 or 3 child-sized thimbles, and I probably have several hundred brass thimbles of normal size. And that's just a great find, because you just never ever see, you know, a child-sized thimble dug. I think I maybe have 2 or 3 in 30 years. So 33, 34 years coming up. Well, I was really pleased with these 2 Civil War finds. I found a lot of Civil War buttons. Almost all of them were Eagles. So I'm not going to show those because I consider that pretty common finds. But this is a spur arm from a Richmond style CS spur. I was very pleased to have that. I wish I could find the rest of it, but I tried. And then down below here, this is a Connecticut cuff button, which is actually my first cuff size Connecticut. So very pleased with both of those items, and happy to dig those in 2024. Well, now it's time for a couple of great finds that are weapon related here. There's what remains of a bayonet that I was able to eyeball, and that's actually the second bayonet that I've eyeballed. Pretty wild. Just laying on the surface of a field. Totally wild. This is another weapon related find. That's an old double barrel shotgun. You can see what the percussion caps were. And one of these barrels was still loaded when it was found, pretty incredibly. So I was pleased to dig that. I like finding these things. You find a lot of double barrel shotguns, and I think I maybe have 15 or so in the years that I've been in Louisiana, which is not long. So it seems like everybody had one for hunting or self-defense or whatever. Pretty cool find. I was really thrilled to dig this boot pistol. That's an iron signal that most people would not ever dig. Great find there. You can see that there's the nipple where the percussion cap went and the hammer went. There's a side plate right here. And I've got a picture of one that I think is very similar to this one that I'll show down here in the lower right of the screen. But I just think that's a really neat find, and not one that many people would ever make, because it's such a small iron signal that most people would never bother to dig it. But you see a lot of brass ones dug, of course. Very cool. And some finds are just absolutely quirky and weird. This was an eyeball find from the surface of a field. It says Japan, J-A-P-A, and then on the second line, N. Weird little figurine. You can tell it was probably painted at one time. Almost looks like it had a red hat. No idea what that's from, but it's pretty cool, and I'm pleased with it. And I've made a big deal about this find before, but I'm really in love with it. That is probably a bass sax horn mouthpiece. And you see some bugles dug, and you see some various other things, but sax horns were the most common instrument, musical brass instrument in the Civil War. And they had various bands of these in various sizes. If you want more information, I'll put a link in the description. You can take a look at an earlier video where I talk all about the sax horn and its history and the various instruments in the family, along with original photos of those. But you don't see these dug in this size very often at all. I'm very pleased with that find. Well, my wife got a handful of precious metals. She got a beautiful Victorian sterling silver thimble. She got a piece from a gold Victorian brooch. It's very finely chased and beautiful. It's like a grapes and or berries and vines or something like that. Grapes and leaves. And this solid gold fragment of a ring. So she was absolutely thrilled with that. And yeah, I was a little skunked on gold this year, but I'm happy for her. And I think each one of these is a great find, to be honest. And we will be back to look for more of the brooch. I'm certain that more of it's there. It'll be interesting to see how big that is, what size it is. All right. We got some variations on a theme here. I tried to get over some gold at the beach this summer and it didn't happen, but I did find a newly dropped silver ring with a heart and an arrow. And then here, towards the end of the year, I was in an old spot and I dug a early 20th century cufflink with the same design. So with this, I'll sign off and say I'm wishing everybody a happy 2025, and I hope you all find some true treasure, whatever that may be. Take care. Please like, please subscribe.